Hello. I thought you were taking a nap. What's up, everybody? I'm a little tired, but I am so glad to be here. Man, it is a Tuesday, and it's Tuesday, right? Yeah, it's a good day. I hope everyone's having a great day. If you're looking at the thumbnail, you're probably like, what is he going to do? What kind of story is this? It's a great story, but keep in mind it is a true crime story, which means there's probably going to be a murder. But, I am so glad to be here to tell this to you, man. I've been wanting to do this story since I've seen it. It's not animal cruelty, okay? And I'm not going to focus on that. I would never do a story that's animal cruelty. Okay, I would never do that. But this is an important story, and I think you'll enjoy it. I also just got back from dinner. I purposely did not get the duck tonight, even though this is a goose. It's a goose story. Anyway, man, I am happy to be here. Let me know in the live chat how everyone's doing. And yeah, talk to me all night. Last episode was really fun with you guys, man. And I'm just trying to, let's have a good time tonight. Let's do it, man. And I'm not drunk. I'm just a little tired. But tonight we're going to the heartland of America. We're going to Hastings, Nebraska. Let's go there on the Google Earth, if you guys don't mind. Does anybody know what Hastings, Nebraska is known for? I'll give anyone on here who doesn't look it up a round of applause if you can tell me what Hastings, Nebraska is known for. All right, here we go. Man, it's kind of a small little town, isn't it? I mean, I've heard of it, right? We've all heard of it. Corn. You're not wrong. Okay, there's a lot of corn here. A lot of corn here. But it's something that we all know and have grown up with. It's one of those weird things. Maybe they have the factory over here. Dang, this is a tiny little town, y'all. Hastings, Nebraska. Let me show you what Hastings, Nebraska is known for. And I would have never guessed this either, but this is the Hastings Museum. I'm going to show you right here. Hold on a second. Hey. Buddy. I'm sorry, my dog is, he's in here trying to bite my feet. Ow. This is Hastings, Nebraska. It's where Kool-Aid was invented, right? Kool-Aid. No one would know that. So before Kool-Aid was invented in Hastings, Nebraska, this story we're going to talk about was the biggest thing in the small town. And it wasn't just in the small town. It was worldwide. Prestige worldwide. It was everywhere. I'm telling you, this story has been in People magazine, has been in Associated Press across the world. It had made an appearance on Johnny Carson. I'm talking about worldwide fame for this story tonight. All right, let's do it, man. Let's go on to it. Sorry, this dog. We're not playing this right now, Cosmo. We're not playing this, bud. Let me show you guys this little dog right quick. We're not doing this right now, bud. We're not doing this. Come here, buddy. He's a good boy. But we're trying to do a story. Anyway, all right. Enough of my dog. I know it's it's Cosmo. I know it's late, but y'all keep me entertained, man. Keep talking. He is old, man. All right, here we go. Let's set the scene here. We're going to Hastings, Nebraska. This is a quintessential Midwestern town of 25,000 souls where cornfields stretch all the way to the horizon. And it is known for Kool-Aid, but before Kool-Aid, it was known for this story. What's up, Heather? This story right here. All right. In 1987, in a town next over to Hastings. Now the story takes place in Hastings, but the birthplace of sorry, let me just back up for a second. Did he say my government name? What did you call me? What did I say? I did not say that. I did not say Heather. Whatever, dude. Whatever, Heather. All right. We're starting 1987. We're going to a town over. This is in Harvard, Nebraska, another small corn town. A little baby goose was hatched, just like all the other thousands that hatched during the year in any given farm town. But this one had hatched with a cruel twist of fate. I guess you can call it evolution gone wrong or whatever. Maybe something in the water. Who knows? Maybe the mama drank some polluted water. I don't know. Anyway, this little runt of the litter of geese that was born with no feet, only 2 small stumps. That is heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking to think about. Down here in Charleston, Nicole said, is about the impacts of red dye number 3. No, it's not, but that's weird that you said that. I saw a post today, actually. It said, this is what your parents drank, and it showed Gatorade, and there was only 3 ingredients in it. It was like sugar, water, lemon juice, and then some kind of beef tallow. I think that was the ingredient. So four ingredients. And then it showed what you drink, and it showed the Gatorade now, and it had all these big words, these scientific chemicals, these GMOs or whatever. You saw that post too? Isn't that crazy? I mean, holy shit. So, I mean, you said red dye number 3. I mean, it could have been, man. I mean, this is in 1987, but anyway. This little bird, this unfortunate goose, was born with 2 stumps and no legs. Now, we live in Charleston, South Carolina, and there have been plenty of times where you're driving through the city. This has happened to me on multiple occasions. I drive through the little town of Mount Pleasant, and you actually have to stop. Traffic is stopped on both sides because a pack of geese are waddling across the road, and you can't honk at them because they don't, well, number one, they don't move if you honk. What's up, Lauren? Number one, they don't move if you honk at them anyway. And number 2, you don't want to be that guy. So everyone just sits there, and sometimes it takes 15 minutes for about 15 geese to waddle across the road. Wolfie says it's because they'll just honk back. That's funny. But it is the funniest thing, man. Like, I mean, I don't care if you're late for a meeting, you're stopped. It's like a railroad crossing. Literally, it's like the freaking gates are down or something. Like, these geese are just waddling across the road. They don't give a shit that cars were going like 70 miles an hour because everyone is slammed on brakes and is just waiting for these geese to cross the road. It is the craziest thing. It's happened to be at least 3 times. It is nuts. And they all walk in like a line. So they're not just like side by side. Like, it's a line of them. Anyway, which, remembering that happened really puts this in perspective for me because, all right, we have a baby goose who is born of several. However, this one only has 2 stumps instead of the web feet. Goose feet are relatively big. You know what they say about a goose with a big foot, right? He's got a big webs. The webs are big. The webs spread out. So his web feet, and that's how they waddle along. Anyway, if they don't have that, this poor little goose could barely even walk. He couldn't walk. He basically drug himself across the gravel and the dirt. It's very sad, but don't worry. This is a very inspirational and motivational episode. So don't get too down right now. I'm not going to take you down a dark path. This is more of a motivational story. All right. It's a cruel twist of fate. No feet, just stumps where his webbed appendages should have been. And for 2 painful years, this nameless bird had struggled in silent agony. Quote from a local, he couldn't keep up with the other geese. His stumps would get raw and bloody from dragging them across the gravel. He'd fall behind when the flock moved to water. That is heartbreaking. Not only that, but he struggled to eat. Now this story does get more positive, but he was struggling. But, it's that itself is something to think about because most animals born in a situation like this, like we just had a friend earlier today tell us about a baby squirrel. A baby squirrel had lost the parents, and then most babies that are born with a disability or they don't have their parents around, they'll just end up dying, and that's just the circle of life. However, this nameless goose, it was like he didn't want to give up. Even though all the odds were against him, he's dragging himself, he's barely eating, he can't keep up with his brothers and sisters, but he just kept going. He wasn't just going to lay down and just die. And that's what the world expected from him. That's what, evolution, that's what it expects, right? It expects the survival of the fittest. The weak would just lay down and die, and he wasn't going to have any of that. Neighbors recalled this pitiful, painful sight of this goose dragging himself forward with his wings, determined to survive, but still facing this struggle that was futile, still facing this futile struggle. A local veterinarian would say about this case, quote, most animals with that disability wouldn't have made it through the first winter. His will to live was extraordinary. The goose, he subsisted on scraps and whatever he could reach. He's living now on borrowed time, each day a testament to his survival instinct. At this point, he barely turned 2 years old. In 1988, an eccentric 68-year-old millionaire, a retired inventor, well, I wouldn't call him retired, just he made his money inventing, and now he's just still inventing, but he's long been retired, and he's extremely eccentric. He describes himself as a tinkerer. He lives on a large estate in Hastings, Nebraska, and he's got all kinds of gadgets that he made, all kinds of it reminds me of this guy. I don't know if anyone's seen this documentary, but the guy who invented Segway, there was a documentary on him, and this guy is extremely intelligent. If you look at the Segway, it was way before its time, right? Not only did it have like a motorized, like not only have we never seen that, anything like that being motorized, but it worked on the principle of like Ford, you lean forward and it activates the, I mean, I don't know. I can't really explain it, but you know what I'm saying? Everyone knows what Segway is. You lean forward on it. That itself is something no one's ever done before. And look how successful it is. And when it came out, I remember the Segway, like everyone was like, oh, this is what you've been wanting to see. This is what was going to change the world. That shit did change the world. Anyway, there was a documentary on his life and his house, and he would make his own water wheels and stuff, and his house was just really eccentric and really effing awesome because he would make all this stuff. Anyway, this guy, this 68-year-old retired inventor, Gene Fleming, was the same way in 1988. You go to his estate, he has all that stuff there, and he made half of it himself. If there was a problem or if there was something that he could do better, he would do it. He'd figure it out, and he had the means to do it. He actually invented the cattle oiler. And that's how he made his fortune. Actually, let's look that up. I actually didn't look that up. Cattle oiler. I kind of want to know what that is. Cattle oiler. It is how the cattle oiler works. Okay, here's a cattle oiler. So it's something to get the bugs off the cows. It says the cattle oiler applies a high, deep topical insecticide to your livestock as they satisfy their natural instinct to scratch. The insecticide leaves a residue on the cattle's coat and hide to kill pests. So some kind of thing, like this is it right here. I guess they go scratch themselves on this thing or whatever. It's supposed to be extremely effective, and it helps get those horse flies and stuff off. Anyway, that is this guy's claim to fame, and I mean, these things sell all over the world, especially in effing Nebraska, right, where there's a ton of cows. So he made a fortune when he patented this thing and brought it to market. So there was one day in 1988 where his granddaughter, Jessica, just gets home from junior high, a day at junior high, and she sees Grandpa working on a new project. It's kind of weird because there's a goose there. What had happened is this 70-year-old, this 68-year-old Gene Fleming, this millionaire inventor, had came across this little goose struggling to get across the path and to join his fellow brothers and sisters, and it touched a chord with this old man. And he knew right then that he's got to find a way to help this poor little bird. It's his destiny. He's got to do something. He doesn't know what, but he's going to try to figure out some way to help this goose. Anyway, when Jessica gets home from school, his granddaughter, she sees, Grandpa working on something like he always does. He's always tinkering with something. And then she sees that goose, and the goose with the two stumps. And then it hit her exactly what Grandpa's doing. And at that point, I will tell you, Jessica was hooked on this goose. Loved this goose like it was a part of the family instantly. That is now their they're part of their family. He had tried many different ways to help mobilize this goose. He had even like a skateboard type of thing where he would try to put like the goose, he wanted the goose to kind of push on one of his stumps and have that forward momentum going, kind of like a skateboard thing. That didn't work. He tried some other stuff. Anyway, he finally figured out what did work. And here's a quote from Jessica right here. Walking into Grandpa's house was like walking into a mad scientist's laboratory, crossed with a natural history museum. And when Gene was interviewed about him taking in this goose, he said, because I'm a Shriner, my natural instinct was to help him. When something's broken, you don't throw it away, you fix it. And let me show you what he did. Let me show you what he came up with. So this is Andy the goose right here, and his owner. And you see what he did was basically make this goose. Andy is the goose's name. That's what they named him. So that's Andy the goose. And he put baby sneakers on him. He basically made a prosthetic leg for him. It's not just the shoes, but it was rubber along with wood, and he made a prosthetic leg, just like you would see someone like in combat who lost their leg. It's the same thing. And then they fit it in the shoe. He made two prosthetic legs for this goose, and it worked. Automatic, like instantly, this goose took to it. He knew exactly what to do, and he started walking like he was never disabled in the first place. That is really impressive, right? I mean, and so from that day forward, these two were bonded forever. You guys think this is weird, don't you? Here's another one. This is, I don't know if y'all can tell what shoes those are, but those are Nike shoes. And that's going to kind of be important here in a minute. But that's him. That's when he first learned to walk right there. All right. So Gene had been quoted as saying, I could give this goose a better life. I think I'm the only one crazy enough to try it. So at this point, from Jessica, a quote from the granddaughter, I got home early that day from junior high. I looked out of the window and I could see Grandpa holding up a leash. So I walked out to see what he was up to, because he was always up to something. Grandpa would say about his prototypes, first I thought, what about wheels? So I made a skateboard contraption, but he just kept falling off. And in a moment of inspiration, Gene would say he was staring at his wife's catalog and saw baby shoes, and then something just clicked. And he purchased a size 0 patent leather baby shoe from a local department store, which were Nikes, a size 0 Nike baby shoe. The sales lady looked at me pretty strange when I said they were for my goose. He stuffed them with foam rubber padding and adapted them to fit over the goose's sensitive stumps. Because at this point, the stumps are sensitive. He's been dragging them for 2 years, right? So he actually molded these things to the stumps. I mean, it's pretty impressive. When Andy took his first real steps in those shoes, I swear to God, he looked up at me with gratitude in his eyes. I know people will say that's crazy, but I saw it. Jessica, the granddaughter, named him Andy, but Gene later claimed to name the goose after the comic strip character, the Andy Cap. If you ever eat hot fries, it's Andy Cap is the thing on there. But it also worked another way because Andy Cap sounds like handicap, so, you know. All right. Gene's wife said the way that bird looked at Gene, it was like he knew he would be saved. At this point, a bond forms, and this bird is Gene's constant companion. This millionaire, eccentric millionaire, who is really extroverted, he's always around town. He drives this bright orange Triumph TR7 sports car convertible. He converted the entire passenger section to fit Andy the goose, and they became inseparable. So now in Hastings, Nebraska, the small town, you have this millionaire eccentric inventor driving this bright orange sports car with a no-footed goose wearing Nike tennis shoes, riding along with them, going to the library, going to the local market, the local stores, going to the pharmacies. He would just trot along like he was his best friend. They slept in a special bed in Gene's workshop. He built him a special kennel and everything. And this goose, Andy, followed him everywhere. They were bonded forever. All right. So this became really popular. I said Hastings was known for Andy worldwide before Kool-Aid came along. October 10th, 1988 is when we first see Andy hit the scene, and after that he rose to feathered fame quickly. The Hastings Tribune published a pretty modest human interest story about the, quote, goose that steps in style. The editor said that they thought it would be a cute local piece. We had no idea that it would explode like it did. The Associated Press picked up the story, and how the Associated Press works is they have a story, and then they basically sell it to all the other newspapers, and then everyone just kind of runs that story. So the story went worldwide real quick. Even People magazine posted a 2-page spread. The goose who got a second chance at life. Television crews from Omaha, Denver, Kansas City, they all descended to see Andy the Goose. Reader's Digest featured their story in Everyday Heroes, and at the pinnacle, an invitation to the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, where Andy, the shoe-wearing goose, waddled across the stage and received a thunderous applause. Carson would later say, quote, "I've interviewed presidents and movie stars, but this is the first time I've ever been upstaged by poultry." At this point, Nike contacted Andy and Gene and gave Andy a lifetime supply of shoes modified for his stumps. It wasn't just the fame, though, okay? This goes deeper. Like I said, they would go to libraries and stuff like that. He was more of an inspiration. You see here, like, kids are really taken to this goose. They see this, and look how happy he is. Look, I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but look at his face. It looks like he's smiling. I mean, this goose has been handed the worst possible hand he could have been handed, right? And he is just the happiest thing ever at this point. And people really took to that, you know? People really took to that because he's handicapped, but he's still being on top of the world. So, Andy wasn't just a novelty. He was a teacher. This is what the Lincoln Journal-Star said. He would go and he would participate in this, these special, the handicap games from the school and stuff like that, and he would really inspire people. He became a symbol of disability awareness, and not only that, but a symbol of overcoming adversity. One physical therapist said, quote, "These kids saw a goose who didn't let his disability disability define him. It was more powerful than any speech I could ever give. At the Children's Hospital in Omaha, Nebraska, nurses would say things like, a little girl who hadn't smiled in weeks laughed when Andy waddled up to her bed. That's the best medicine you can prescribe. So, I mean, Andy should not even be here. He should be dead. Nature didn't give him the tools to live any type of productive life, but now he's famous, he's happy, and more importantly, he's helping others. So, what do you guys think? This is fuck yeah. All right, let me look at these right quick. Shram says, flock yeah. It is a sweet story. And I kind of want to just stop it there. Because this is a true crime story. But I don't want it to be that way. I'm trying to, even now, 30 years later, I mean, y'all know what this is, man. Y'all know what this is. Oh, God. Now what? I'm the bad guy? Hey, I say, so Jessica, the granddaughter who became really attached to Andy, has brought this story back to the public. And I got your back, bro. Jesus. Oh my God, this is terrible. This is like the one of the, I don't even want to effing finish this. It doesn't end. It doesn't end well, but the underlying message is more important. Jessica, the granddaughter, who was, see, balls, I needed a story like this. I don't know what you're talking. I think you're saying the other thing, what other people are saying. Before I said it was a true crime story, everyone's like, I needed this today. I needed the motivation. Now I said it's going to end terribly, and you say I needed a story like this. Anyway, the granddaughter, Jessica, has recently taken this story back. She's been trying to put this back in the public eye for 30 years, and I think she's doing a great job. Because Andy did help so many people, and he had a very short life, as you're about to see, unfortunately. But you know what? Let's pull the Band-Aid off, man. Let's do it. I'm sorry. You guys know what this is, man. You guys know what this is. I will say, right before this story takes a very dark turn, which we're about to talk about, Andy, and I feel like Andy lived longer than he would have, and I feel content after researching the story and that he lived a good life. But he did meet a female goose, Pauline, and that became Andy's mate. Gene had told one of the reporters, quote, even in love, Andy beat the odds. So now he's got a beautiful goose girlfriend, and they started sleeping, together in the cages, and Andy's kind of grown up now. A couple years have been by. He's been famous. He's done that. He's still helping people like crazy, but he wants to settle down with his new girlfriend. And then this happens. It's about 3 years later after we started this story. It's a Sunday morning. It's 1991. It's October 20th. It's cold outside. We're on the estate of Gene Fleming's estate. A neighbor Leo Stoiler is taking a regular walk. He always does it every morning. He has a metal detector. He's always looking for something. Anyway, he's at the Chautauqua Park. He's doop, 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 with his metal detector. Quote, "It was a beautiful fall morning. The leaves were turning. Then I saw something that didn't belong. At first glance, he saw it was a goose. And then he noticed the shoes." I think I just heard Nicole just downstairs saying, "Oh." Holy shit. He sees this haunting sight. He sees it's a goose, but then he sees the shoes. Quote, "My stomach dropped. I knew immediately it was Andy. Those little shoes. I'll never forget that sight as long as I live." The neighbor threw down his metal detector, ran to Fleming's house. "Gene, have you checked Andy's pen? I think something terrible has happened." Gene raced to the enclosure that he made for him, Andy, and his soon-to-be goose wife, Pauline. Both empty. A jar. No sight of either Andy or his mate. "I knew right then," Gene would say, "that it wasn't an accident. Someone took him. Someone who knew where he was." Minutes later, at the sheriff's department, minutes later, the phone rings. It's Gene shouting, "I need an officer right now." His voice cracking. I mean, he's a 70-year-old man. He's in tears. He's in shock. What's sad about this story is this didn't just happen to Andy. Gene Fleming, who everyone loved, the inventor, the eccentric inventor, everyone loved him for his antics and his philanthropy and his just good-heartedness. He would go downhill really quick after this brisk fall morning in 1991 in October. "I need an officer right now." He's shouting. His voice is cracking. He's crying. "Sir, calm down," Sheriff's Deputy Mike Peterson says. "Calm down. You're speaking to an officer, to a deputy. What's going on?" "There's been a murder." "Who's been murdered, sir?" "Andy." "Andy who? Who's Andy?" At this point, this sheriff's deputy, who was pretty new to the job, pretty new to the town, realized, because he knew, he remembered the voice. He remembered, oh my God, this is Gene. This is Gene. "I'm on my way." And not only him, the entire department rushes over to the estate. This is how powerful this goose had. It's the entire town, as you're going to see. Officers arrived. They find Gene in shock. He's sitting on his porch steps. In all my years on the force, I've never seen a grown man so devastated over an animal. The crime scene was I'm not even looking at the comments, by the way, because I don't want you guys to be like, I don't know. This is bad. The crime scene was this was obviously not an accident. This was a a crime scene of the most brutal and gruesome nature. Andy, the beautiful soul trapped in a stumpy leg goose, had been decapitated with surgical precision. The officer in his report wrote, "This wasn't a fox or a coyote. The cuts were clean. The cuts were deliberate. The wings had been removed, but the shoes remained. It was a cruel signature. Footprints, fresh footprints, had circled Andy's enclosure. Distinct boot treads pressed deep into the mud. You know he didn't open his cage by himself, because those boot prints, they weren't the size 0 baby sneakers. They weren't his Nikes. He'd been grabbed. He'd been abducted. He'd been taken." Jessica, the stepdaughter, said, "Where we kept the goose, it was in a place that you'd have to know where he was. You couldn't just stumble upon it. Someone went looking for Andy." Officers photographed Andy's body with the same somber care, or perhaps even more, than a regular human victim would get. It was well documented, taped out. Every piece of evidence that could be gathered was gathered. This was a community member for the community. Just keep that in mind. This was no less than having one of their own children slaughtered. That is how everyone thought of this. That is why the title of this video is the news headline that came out. In my 28 years of law enforcement, I never thought I'd be investigating the murder of a goose, but this wasn't just any goose. The community's reaction was immediate and unified. It was outrage. Also, unfortunately, Pauline, Andy's goose lover, his mate, soon to be wed, was never found. Presumed she was dead somewhere. The killer didn't even have the heart to leave them together. No one knows what happened to her. Jean said they took Polly because she had no shoes, nothing to identify her, but they left Andy's shoes as a message. The news spread through Hastings like wildfire. A local pastor. I had people crying in church. It was as if someone had killed a beloved community member. The Chamber of Commerce established a reward fund. Now, this is the people's taxes in this small farming town. Okay, and this is in 1991. A reward fund of $10,000. Let that sink in. Okay? That's a lot of money. Most humans today don't even get that. One of the chamber members explained, our previous highest reward was for a theft, and that was for $100. This is $10,000. Quote, this shows you how much Andy meant to this community. The local newspaper received over 200 letters to the editor demanding justice. The mayor of Hastings declared, this is a senseless act of cruelty and it strikes at the heart of our community values. Children all over in the school systems in Hastings sent hand-drawn cards to Jean. One girl wrote, Mr. Fleming, I'm putting my tooth fairy money in the reward fund. Out of the small police force in Hastings, 2 detectives were assigned full time to investigate this murder. Local businesses and every local businesses had signs up, "Justice for Andy," in the windows. Gene received phone calls from around the country, including Mr. Carson, Mr. Johnny Carson himself. The investigation was extremely thorough. Door-to-door knocking, interviews. Quote, people were eager to help. Everyone had a theory. Multiple suspects emerged, including local teenagers known for animal cruelty. Forensics revealed that Andy had been killed elsewhere and transported to the park. Blood splatter patterns were inconsistent with the discovery site. They know he was killed somewhere else and then brought to the site. Authorities from Denver traveled to Hastings to say, quote, we've had ritual bird killings here that share similarities. This is during the Satanic Panic, the end of it, but the ritualistic cat and bird killings is a big thing for Satanists, Anonymous tip line was set up, 300 calls in the first week. Quote, we followed every single lead, no matter how small, said the sheriff. Gene hired a private investigator. Money was no object. I want justice for Andy. Jessica would say Grandpa would sit by the phone day and night, hoping for the one call that would break the case. Even the FBI offered assistance with the boot prints. After months of investigation, a pattern emerged. A perpetrator had intimate knowledge of Gene's property and Andy's routine. Whoever did this, whether it's kids, whether it's jealous, whoever, they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly where Andy was. 2 years after the murder, a call comes in from the sheriff's department. It says someone from the sheriff's department said, well, we found out who did it, but we can't tell you. And we don't want to have any news release about it. The department allegedly told, as I said at this point, Gene Fleming went downhill and he'd be dead within 2 years. Anyway, the sheriff's department allegedly said they know who did it, but we can't tell you, and we don't want to have any news release about it. Allegedly, and this is just an allegation, no one knows if this is true or not, but Andy's killer was, quote, somebody that was not responsible. So this is allegedly, all right, this is just, it may not even be true. I saw this somewhere, it may not even be true, but it seems like one of the suspects was a mentally handicapped individual. That's why they didn't want any news release about it. No one knows. No one knows. It's still a mystery, and it's still an unsolved case. Guy, this is extreme. This is not just some bullshit I'm doing. This is an unsolved case that is still open to this day. I mean, there are leads being followed up on this. 30 years later, I am not joking. This is unsolved. It is considered a murder. It's crazy, right? That's how much this bird meant to people. That's how the joy and the pride. It's an unsolved murder that's still open on the books, man. It seriously is. It's the craziest thing. It's probably the only animal unsolved murder that is still being actively looked at. It's crazy, right? The information that I just gave you was never confirmed publicly by law enforcement. That's just an allegation. But Gene's son revealed years later that They told Dad they knew who did it but couldn't prosecute it, ate at him for the rest of his life. Jessica would ask, was it a cover-up? Was there some reason they couldn't pursue charges? We'll never know. That reward money was eventually donated to children's projects. And the sheriff maintained until he retired, and even now, Andy's case file was never officially closed. So this is where Andy was buried, in the backyard of where he was. He brought so much joy. Yeah, I mean, I did say that, Lauren. Lauren said Wikipedia said Andy's head and feathers were ripped off. They were. I did mention his feathers were ripped off. What was he wearing? Was he asking for it? Bird bath. Yeah, it's freaking sad, man. I mean, it's a great story, but holy shit, that's sad. Fuck. I honestly didn't realize how sad it was until like I got on here and I'm like, fuck. I gotta do it now, shit. Oh man. Let's this is Jessica. She does a show called Andy Interrupted that talks she still tours and everything. As you see, she doesn't have very much. I mean, it's an old story, so you know, most people that would see this weren't even alive back then. But she does do some like not shows, but just kind of to keep the memory alive of Andy. But let me show you some pictures, more pictures of him. It's I had found a video that had a bunch of pictures of Andy. What do you guys think, man? This is pretty sad. Yeah, here it is right here. This is just some a couple photos and stuff. After this ad plays, of course.
Allergy pills.
Good or X? A lot of money.
1 second. Fuck.
Everywhere sharing the same.
Oh, God. Seriously, he's going to do the ad again? God, I fucking hate YouTube. Such a scam, dude. Yeah, I was hoping this case would be more like the wolf, the three-legged wolf, which was kind of also sad, but also super epic. I don't know if y'all remember that. But, oh my God. Dude, what the fuck? Just play the mother effing video. Sorry, y'all. Alright, here's just some photos of Andy. You can see all you can see him there with Gene. Like they would hang. You see his stumps right there. You see his little stumps. This is them walking. Kind of sad, man. It's like really sad. I mean, I kind of want a goose now, man. Honestly, where do I get a goose? Look at that. He's riding a motorcycle. That's kind of cool. Anyway, I know that's sad. Sorry about that. Shit. All right, let's finish this thing up, man. All right. The Granite headstone says Andy, he walked despite the odds. According to Jessica, the granddaughter, Jean Fleming began showing signs of Alzheimer's shortly after Andy's death. In retrospect, I think it was Andy who had kept him with us for a lot longer, she reflected. After Andy died, something in Grandpa died too. Jean had planned a bronze memorial for Andy in Hastings, but the project never materialized. He spent hours watching home videos of Andy, particularly footage from their Tonight Show appearance. The light, quote, the light went out of his eyes. That's what his wife would say. He'd lost more than a pet. He'd lost his purpose. Oh, that's sad. In his final months, Jean would sometimes ask, "Where's Andy? Is he outside?" And Jean passed away in a nursing home. His last coherent words to me were about Andy. He said, quote, "Take care of his shoes." Oh, man. I hope they still have those shoes. I mean, I would imagine they do. Jessica has spent the last 30 years dedicating and preserving Andy's story. She collected all Grandpa's archives, fan mail, crime scene photos, notebooks, quote, every letter, every photo, every news clipping. Grandma saved it all. It was like a time capsule of fame and tragedy. And that's the show, YouTube and the live show she does is called Andy Interrupted. And she tours around Nebraska. When I perform it, people in their 50s and 60s cry. They remember Andy. They remember what he meant to this community. Man, that's sad. On October 19th, 2024, the anniversary of Andy's disappearance, the museum hosted Jessica's performance. Rest in power, Andy. You magnificent, stumpy bastard. Jessica concluded in her show. She remains determined to solve the case. I'm less interested in who killed Andy and more interested in why. What kind of person murders a disabled goose who brought so much joy to so many people? There's been children's books written around about Andy. The Goose Who Could was published in 2018, focusing on Andy's life rather than his death. And Jessica would say, in the end, it's not about how Andy died, but how he lived. He was just a goose with no feet who touched thousands of lives. If that's not a legacy worth preserving, I don't know what is. And that's the story, man. I'm tearing up, man. That's sad, dude. Jeez, man. That's sad. But, you know, rest in peace, you stumpy bastard. I mean, he brought so much joy to people, man. It's crazy. Look how happy he is, too. Anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed it. I'm sorry it went kind of dark there, man, but, you know, I had to tell a story. Anyway, hope y'all enjoyed it. Y'all go get some sleep and shit. I mean, I'm guessing I'll be back here on Friday to do another story. If you guys want, try to put something in I know y'all been putting them in the Discord. I know Martin's put a couple. I'm going to get to those. You know, it's just kind of like what I'm feeling for the day or, you know, the next 2 days or whatever. That's how I pick the stories. Anyway, good night, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Until next time, good night, you